Sanibonani, good day, Dumelang, Ndi Dubalawudi. I hail from the village of Dutuni in the province of Limpopo. The area surrounding Dutuni is lush with rolling hills. Life in Dutuni, however, is the reality of the vast majority of South Africa's people. I attended primary school lessons a world away from the comforts of a structure and balanced my schoolwork with herding livestock for my family. There was little more than a few rickety benches under a tree, and when rain or cold weather descended, our classes were often abandoned. I certainly dreamt big, but as you know, in the context of our country, often the odds are stacked against dreams of that stature. I am one of the lucky few. I went to high school at Mbiri Secondary School in Sibasa. It was in matric that I subverted what many assured would be my lot in life. I entered and won the National Science Olympiad and was sent to the United Kingdom to attend the London International Youth Science Fortnight. It was hard work, it was tenacity, but more than anything, it was the type of luck one holds when winning the lotto. In the week preceding my trip, I found myself in Johannesburg, the biggest city I had ever seen. It was busy, it was bustling, and it was the complete antithesis of Dutuni. It was awash with opportunity for someone as wide-eyed as I was. A few days later, when I left for London, I was certainly carrying my context with me. I didn't understand the Cold War or the global context. Engineering or artificial intelligence were not in my lexicon, and my future certainly hadn't been mapped out yet. But it was in frosty London that I decided on two things. I would spend the rest of my life in science and technology, and I would go outside to study. Did I imagine at the time that I would one day write books, become the vice chancellor of a university, or hold my own patents? Though I had great ambitions, I don't think I dared to dream that big. After all, my childhood was a microcosm of the broader realities of our nation. Our country is plagued with rampant inequality. Stuck in my mind is the Times magazine cover from last year. The cover was taken by photographer Johnny Miller with a drone to highlight how close and how unequal our spaces have become. Two neighborhoods outside of Johannesburg, the wealthy Primrose on the left and the informal settlement of Makause on the right, are indicative of our fraught context. It was in 2018 that the World Bank admonished South Africa as the most unequal country, with estimations from 2015 that the top 10% owned 70% of the nation's assets. It takes little more than a drive to confirm this. Sandton, the richest square mile in Africa, lies next to Alexandra Township. Just a few kilometers from the continent's tallest building, where you will find grandeur and meals akin to Michelin star restaurants, lie rows of shacks. Our inequality is multifaceted. It is apparent in our unemployment statistics, in our education system, in our public health system, and in the spread of our land. Yet in an age where we must be equipped with skills to stay ahead, our education levels arguably prove the most damning. In February of this year, a report published by Amnesty International referred to the South African education system as characterized by crumbling infrastructure, overcrowded classrooms, and relatively poor educational outcomes, is perpetuating inequality and, as a result, failing too many of its children with the poor hardest hit. Close quote. This is not intended to be pessimistic. I am, of course, testament that you can forge a different path when given the chance, but it must be acknowledged that I am on the outlier, and for many, a chance opportunity remains elusive. The statistics are certainly damning. In 2018, Statistics South Africa found that more than 3 million South Africans are illiterate, meaning they do not have the ability to read and write in at least one language. More devastating than this is that the Progress in International Reading Literacy study, which assesses children's reading comprehension, has placed South African children last in 50 countries. According to the study, 78% of grade 4 pupils in South Africa cannot read for basic meaning in any national language. In other words, 8 out of 10 9-year-olds in South Africa are functionally illiterate. In our vast population, many do not make it into high school, let alone to matric. Less than 70% of students who obtain a matric exemption enroll in university. The cost of schooling is exorbitant for families who have a single breadwinner who live on the poverty line, and the ugly truth is many of the existing structures remain woefully ill-equipped to educate at the required level. Even among those who make it to university, disparity lingers. The COVID-19 pandemic certainly revealed many of these fault lines. In the shift towards remote teaching and learning, issues of access frequently cropped up. For those who beat the odds and made it to a tertiary institution, there were still hindrances. Data, Wi-Fi, and access to smartphones, at the very least, are necessities for a complete transition online. Yet, this sadly is not a reality for many of students who are often the first in their families to go to university and face other economic challenges. While there have been short-term solutions to this, such as free data for the lockdown period and the distribution of devices, there needs to be a long-term view. This, of course, does not address the needs and requirements of the vast swathe of our population who are left behind. The outlook seems dire. The unemployment statistics point a grim picture. If you delve into the numbers, there is an indication that the graduate unemployment is lower than the rate among those with other educational levels. Thus, education is still the key to improving youth prospects in the South African labor market. Data from the World Bank in 2018 indicated that 12% of workers with a tertiary education were unemployed in 2018. This ranks South Africa in an alarming 10th highest globally. Given the economic fallout since then, on the back of load shedding and now a global pandemic and national lockdown, the prospects are likely to look even bleaker. According to a 2019 World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report, a key challenge for our rising unemployment problem is the lack of enough and appropriate skills. As we ponder how to create an equal playing field, we need to posit solutions that bridge our digital divide, encompassed by access to the internet, education, skilled employment, and technological innovation. One solution is that we need to adapt our education system to one that adequately equips students. This must encompass upskilling, reskilling, and providing access to on-the-job training with a particular focus on the inclusion of women. The success of remote learning indicates that there is a room for more students that universities cannot accommodate on campuses. We simultaneously must navigate the conversation around access and inequity. Greater access to data and devices, in part, requires backing from our telecommunications sector. Another solution is greater access to Wi-Fi. Already free Wi-Fi, such as Always On, is available in airports and malls. There are NGOs and community organizations that provide centers to work from. Violence prevention through urban upgrading, VPPU, provide free Wi-Fi at their offices in Lotus Park in Gugulethu and Harare Square in Khayelitsha in Cape Town. The What If Trust in Diepsloot, Johannesburg, has a digital lab with a free Wi-Fi center. They also teach the basics of robotics, coding, and how to make it fun for kids in the areas using the trainer concept, which allows the passing on of skills. These are pockets of hope that are models that have to be replicated if we are to ensure that more of our people have access. Of course, these solutions are all well and good to posit. In fact, you would be hard-pressed to find a South African who isn't aware that education and, importantly, access are keys to subverting our current narrative. Yet, the funding and a fundamental will need to be directed here for these to be a reality. As Nelson Mandela so eloquently put it, and I quote, "As long as many of our people still live in utter poverty, as long as children still live under plastic covers, as long as many of our people are still without jobs, no South African should rest and wallow in the joy of freedom," close quote. It is a much grander responsibility than simply calling for change. We must create a South Africa where an aspirational teenager from the village of Dutuni isn't seen as one of the lucky few. The dreams in villages, the dreams in townships are just as valid as those nestled between the suburbs. We shouldn't wonder why our youth dare to dream so big. We shouldn't hope that they strike it lucky. Instead, we should foster an environment that makes this a growing reality. Ngiyabonga, bayadanki, thank you.
The University of Johannesburg, a future reimagined.